It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come
Hi,
a
hello. My name is
long
Contessa.
way
I'm here to talk about my
from
son who
where
passed
we
away. He was 9 days
began.
old
Oh,
and he
I'll
passed
tell you
because
all
somebody wasn't
about it.
watching him at the hospital. Now, this is him. He was only 9 days old when he passed away. I was pregnant with twins, and I did see my OB. I actually had a specialist. I was seeing two doctors with the twins because it was basically high risk. When you're pregnant with multiples, they kind of watch you a little bit more. So I used to go in for sonograms like every 2 weeks, a week. I did a lot of testing with him. I even did a genetic testing that came back clear, and it told me that I was having a girl and a boy. So when they did the sonogram on him, they noticed that there was a little hard, and they said that it might be Down syndrome. But since I did the genetic testing, it wasn't that he had Down syndrome. So moving along. I had the twins in June, and it was 34 weeks and 4 days when I had them. So I wasn't I wasn't fully like due. So they were kind of scared that they were underweight and stuff like that. But when twin A came out, which is my little girl, she was 4 pounds 5 ounces. When he came out, he was 4 pounds 8 ounces. Now, when she came out, everything was fine. But when he came out, he was blue, and I was kind of freaking out. But I was having C-section, so I couldn't move on that little table that they put you on. So I was freaking out. I turned and I looked at the dad and I said, you know what? Go and make sure everything is okay with our son. And he was like, are you sure? I go, no, go with the twins. Make sure everything's okay because I was scared that he was blue and they need to finish me up so I can go into recovery. And then after recovery, they put me in my room. So after that, after they sewed, not sewed me up, but they stapled me up and everything like that. And, I was in the room. They finally brought him in, which they didn't bring her in because she was resting and she was in the NICU because she was preemie. So they come in and he's in the incubator and I'm looking and I was like, okay, what's going on? And they said that they need to transport him to a different hospital. And I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, just do what you need to do. Make sure that he's okay because, he's my son and I wanted him to live. Well, they transport him. I signed the papers, didn't get to hold him, didn't get to touch him, didn't get to do anything. So they basically took him to the the children's hospital that they were going to take him to. So basically, after that, I was in, I was waiting for them to release me. I actually told my doctor, he came in to see me. He was like, okay, we need to keep you. I was like, look, I want to leave. He goes, no, I can't let you leave because you just had twins and we need to make sure everything's okay. And I was like, I was going crazy, to be honest. I would go visit my daughter, make sure she was okay. I would call the hospital, make sure he was okay. They actually called me when he got there, and they told me that he needed to get surgery. And I was like, okay, what kind of surgery? And they're like, the hole in his heart, we're gonna go in and we're gonna try to make it bigger. And I was like, okay, do whatever you need to try to save my son. So the cardiologist, Mrs. Porsche, did the procedure, but she wasn't successful on it. So she called me and told me we need to let him rest and get a little, like, because they had just, I had just given birth to him, and they said, we keep messing with him, he's going to get weaker. So let's wait a couple of days and make sure that he gets stronger. I'm sorry, guys. This is a really long story. I'm sorry. It just, y'all need to know from beginning to end. So after that, they called me and told me it wasn't successful. So I was like, okay, what else do we need to do? They go, we're gonna wait a couple of days, let him get a little bigger, and we'll do what we need to do. But the next day, they had called in the father to make sure that he was there to make sure that, like, tell him what was going on and to make sure what was the plan. Basically, that's what they were doing. They called a meeting with all of the doctors, all the cardiologists, and they were coming down with the plan. They turned around and told him, because I was still in the other hospital and I was dealing with trying to heal, trying to walk. I mean, I was walking the first day that I had my C-section, I was walking back and forth because I actually wanted to leave the hospital so I can go to the other hospital and be visiting both hospitals because I was concerned for him and I was concerned for my daughter. So they meet together and they turn around and they say, okay, your son has transposition of the great arteries, basically the artery to his heart and another part of his heart. In other words, they're reversed and they need to switch them to right because of the fact that it's not, in other words, the heart's not functioning right. They told him, your son has a 97% chance of survival, and all he will need when he grows up, he can be a regular boy, he can play basketball, shoot hoops, do whatever he wants to do, football, everything. All he would have for the rest of his life is a cardiologist and his regular doctor, and, he would live a normal life. I was like, okay. That's what they told me, and that's what they told the father. And I was like, okay, cool. We have a game plan. He's going to be okay. He's in good hands. They know what they're doing and they know what they're talking about. Now, when I was researching it, they had said it basically transmission of the great arteries. If they don't catch it within the first month of living, basically they die. So they have to have surgery within that month of being born. So I was like, okay, good. So they're like, we're just waiting for him to get a little bigger and, the brain to mature because we don't want to traumatize him. So that was the game plan. That's all we were doing. We were waiting for heart surgery, and that was it. So let's move along. I finally get out of the hospital. I'm going in between where my daughter is, the hospital where I had the children, and then I'm going to the other hospital that they transferred him to. So my day, I'd wake up, take a shower, go see her, go see him. And the day, okay, we're going to fast forward, okay, because it's a lot. They basically told me he was healthy, that he was on antibiotics, that everything was fine. So that was good. I was happy. My son's doing great. We're waiting for heart surgery. It's going to happen. So that day that we went to go see him, before he passed away, I had to take my older 3 children to visit their dad. And I was asking them because that month of July, they have them for a month of July. Anybody who has where they send the kids to their dads, like they have a whole month for the summer. So I was asking them, I go, look, I was wondering if I can have the children for one weekend and I'll bring them back to you, because in our paperwork it shows that I can do that. But I have to write a letter stating that I want the children for that month before April falls. So I didn't do that. He got upset. He said, no, you're not taking them, like being all ugly. And I was dealing with my own, and he was just being ugly. And, I just left it alone. He was arguing with me. I go, you know what? I can't do this right now. I got in the car and we took off to go see my son. Well, when we go see him, me and Dad go in, and he's disconnected from everything. And I'm like, wait, that doesn't make any sense, because he's in the NICU and he should be connected to things, to monitor everything. Well, when I touched him, like to touch his finger and stuff, they turned around and I noticed he was cold, and I was like, why is he so cold? And they go, well, he's been running warm all day. And I was like, oh, this nurse is being a bee. But I left it alone because she was also on Facebook. Well, while we were visiting, I say not even 5 to 10 minutes in there, like all these nurses start rushing, and I'm like, okay, what the hell's going on? And I looked at the dad and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? They kind of scared me, and they're like, no, we got to check this, we got to check that, because the damn nurse was not doing her job. Now in the NICU, one nurse has 2 babies. This nurse only had my son, so it was 1 baby. So she couldn't even do that because she was too busy on Facebook. So all these nurses were trying to do everything, trying to help her and everything like that. Well, there's this test where they poke him and they try to get some blood out of his foot so they can check his gases. While they were checking his gases, the blood didn't want to come out, so she grabbed something to warm up his foot to try to take out the blood. So when that was happening, the nurse was just being all awful and rude. And I was looking at the dad and I was like, you know what? We should ask him some questions because he doesn't look right. Like, to me, he didn't look right. I asked him, is he jaundiced? Because his face looked different. And they're like, oh, maybe. Like, they couldn't give me straight answers. Basically, nobody was doing their job. They were trying to cover up their asses right there and then because she wasn't doing her job. So after that, they all leave and it's changing of the shift. She was ready to freaking clock out. She didn't give a shit about my son, and it kind of pissed me off. I was like, okay, let's see the next nurse. Let's see if she's okay. Well, while the nurse was there, I don't remember her name. I'll find it. Somebody told it to me. I wrote it down, but she was such a sweetheart. She comes in and I basically asked her, when is it that I can hold my son? Because I'm since the day he was born, I never held him. And she was like, well, you can hold him probably tomorrow. Right now we're just trying to get him used to getting his temp up and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, okay. Well, I leave so grandma can go see him. And I'm like, okay. And my daughter was in the waiting room with grandma. So I'm there playing with my daughter. She's visiting. And then all of a sudden I'm all, did you go poo-poo, mamas? And she started laughing, and yay. Now, when you have a C-section, you can't carry anything more than 2 to 3 pounds. Well, so what I ended up doing was calling dad. Like, I don't know, for some reason I kept calling dad, and I was getting upset because nobody was answering. Well, finally he calls me. He tells me, you need to get over here fast because something is wrong. Guys, I'm sorry, I had to stop. I had to do something. So, I talked to dad. Dad says, you need to get here quickly because he stopped breathing. Well, when I was running and trying to get to my son, I'm going to be honest, it felt like I was in a movie. Like I was trying to get there and I couldn't get there. But finally I get there and I hand I hand my daughter to grandma, and I'm just there like, okay, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. He's in good hands. Well, when I go in, they're working on him, and the nurse turns around and goes, why is he disconnected from everything? I said, he was like that when we came in. Me and dad were saying that, we had wondered why, and the nurse really wasn't talking to us. I even said that he looked weird, different, and she wasn't talking to me. She was too busy on Facebook. That's what I said. Well, she was like, let me see if I missed something. So she goes back and she goes, oh my God, there's 4 hours missing. Now, when a cardiac patient is in the NICU and it's that small, they're supposed to check their vitals every hour on the hour to make sure everything's okay. And the nurse didn't do that. So while she was doing all that, she was checking his temp. Now, when they checked his temp, he was 92.7 degrees. That is basically almost dying. And the nurse turned around and said, I only see, because he was breathing kind of weird, she goes, I've only seen this when patients are about to die. So they're working on him, trying to get him back. And Dr. Ortiz came in, and he was just ugly and rude. And he was like, I'm sorry, but not even 5 minutes working on my son. I'm sorry, but it looks bad, and I don't think we can save your son. So basically, he was giving up on my son, not even trying his best. So he's like, I'm going to call the cardiologist. Maybe she can get here, and we can do something. So, and maybe we can do the heart surgery. So I was thinking, you know what, she's going to get here. Everything's going to be okay. They're going to save him. They're going to put him in a breathing tube, everything. No, that's not what happened. Now, mind you, Dr. Porsche was 20 minutes away. She got there within 15 minutes. Like, she got there within the quickness. Now, when she was doing everything, she was cutting into my son 5 to 6 times. My son was not numb at all. She was just cutting into him, trying to put in central lines so they can give him epi, they can give him everything. Now, we found out my son needed a blood transfusion, that he basically didn't have any blood. That's why it was hard for the nurse to take out any blood, because my son needed a blood transfusion. That was another thing. Now, they brought in this machine that they said that can save him. It kind of shakes. I do not know the name of it, but I will try to find out. They said only here in Texas that they have that machine. So they hooked him up to that machine, and I'm going to tell you, it looks bad because the babies are just shaking, and it just looks really, really bad. So after Dr. Porsche stabilized my son, she looked at me and told me my son is a fighter, that any other baby wouldn't have fought this long, especially how old he was. He was only 9 days old. She goes, he wants to stay with you. He doesn't want to leave. I'm sorry. So I was all like, okay, please save my son. She goes, I think your son had gotten an infection, and the infection is really bad, and we're going to try to control it. And I was just looking at her like, what? So After she stabilizes him, she's there making phone calls to other doctors to see what she can do next. Well, Dr. Ortiz started fighting with her and turned around and goes, I'm gonna cool down baby because of the fact it's protocol and he's been through too much trauma and we need to cool him down. She turns around and looks and tells him, you don't think we should give him a fighting chance? Like, she didn't want to do it because of the fact she knew that something bad would happen. He goes, I don't care what you say. I'm gonna cool down the baby. So they come and they bring the cooling blanket and they start cooling down my son when his heart rate started dropping. His heartbeat started dropping, so they had to start CPR again. While they were bringing him back, I looked over and Dr. Porsche left because she started crying because she knew what was going to happen. So they're trying to bring him back. Finally, they stabilize him and he looks at us and says, we're going to need to bring in the machine for the brain to see if he has any brain activity because he had gone down so many times that basically they need to see if he's a vegetable or not. And I'm like, okay. They were giving him so many drugs that they actually had to call the pharmacy to come up to try to save him. My son fought so hard. He fought so hard to be here. So after a while, they come and they bring the machine and they start putting it on its head. I'm sorry. After they put it on his head, they turn around and tell me he has no brain activity and that he's gone and we gotta let him go. I looked at them like, how can you do this to my son? Nobody was watching him. To be honest, it's not like the movies where you start screaming. You basically go numb. And all you can do is cry. They go, once he takes his last breath, we'll let you hold your child. Now, mind you, I never held my child at all when he was left. They hand him to me. They hand my son to me. And the doctor comes in and reaches over and goes, he's dead. And now, mind you, this is Dr. Ortiz. He did it so ugly. So there I am visiting with my son. And to be honest, when you lose a child, you're not thinking right, you're not thinking straight. They turn around and they ask me, do I want an autopsy? I turn around and tell them no because my son went through so much pain. Because I don't understand. They told me he was brain dead and he was still moving his arm and his head. And I just didn't understand. But he did not. I held him, I kissed him, and I told him how much I loved him. I told him I was sorry because of the fact that nobody was watching him. I thought he was in good hands. I really thought he was in good hands, but he wasn't.
And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
You know what, to be honest, the hospital to save their own asses because of the fact I didn't do an autopsy, which they did. They did the echo 5 times on his heart and they knew it wasn't his heart. So basically, how can we say, they lied on the death certificate. They said that would kill him with his heart, so I couldn't sue them. I miss him every day.
Without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began.